3 is the magic number, but 42 is apparently the meaning of life. So what is it? 1 plus 1 equals 2. There are 30 seconds in 1 minute, 60 minutes in an hour. There are 24 hours in 1 day. A year is 365 and a quarter days. They're all basic facts we know by heart, but they highlight the importance of one thing: numbers. Can you imagine a world without numbers? It's safe to say that society as we know it today would never have developed without numbers. The scientific and technological advances upon which society is built depends upon mathematics, which in turn depends on numbers. There are many different types of numbers. How many of these do you know? Despite their importance, the development of numbers remains mostly a mystery. That's because the first ancient prehistoric people who likely developed simple methods of counting didn't leave any records behind to explain themselves. Common sense and ancient evidence points to the idea that numbers and counting began with number 1, although they probably didn't call it 1. Prehistoric people liked counting by ones and kept track by carving lines on bones or walls. Evidence that this occurred as long ago as 20,000 years can be found on an ancient artifact known as the Ishango bone, found in Africa in 1960. This bone, which is a fibula of a baboon, features a series of lines that look like what we would call tally marks today. Each tally mark was stood for 1, and as this further developed, each 5th mark was scored through to help keep track. This system is fine for small numbers, but it doesn't really work with large numbers. Try writing the number 27,893 using tally marks. Early systems all have one thing in common. They require someone to write down many symbols to record a single number and create new symbols for each larger number. A positional system allows you to reuse the same symbols by assigning the symbols different values based on their position in a sequence. Several civilizations developed positional notation independently, including the Babylonians, the Chinese, and the Aztecs. By the 7th century, Indian mathematicians had perfected a decimal or base 10 positional system, which could represent any number with only 10 unique symbols. Over the next few centuries, Arab merchants, scholars, and conquerors began to spread it through Europe. A key breakthrough of this particular system, which was also independently developed by the Mayans, was the number 0. Older positional notational systems, which didn't have a 0, would leave a blank in its space, making it hard to distinguish between 63 and 603, or 12 and 120. Having and using 0 helps make writing numbers down clearer and easier for everyone to understand. Positional notation doesn't have to be based around a decimal or base 10 system. The Babylonians invented a base 60 system, which is still the foundation of the way we tell time. Each day is made up of 60-minute hours and 60-second minutes. Maths all around us. You need to be able to understand the fundamental basic concepts of maths to be able to survive in the world independently. If you didn't know how to count, add, subtract, multiply, and divide, think of the number of things you wouldn't be able to do. This is why maths is so important. It's a form of communication that people use in so many different ways every day. Without it, the world would be a mess. You may have heard people say that maths they learnt at school, specifically algebra or Pythagoras' theorem, is useless to them as adults, and that this has left them wondering, why were we told maths is so important? However, numeracy and maths is used far more often on a daily basis by everyone than we realise. Not always at the angles in a triangle, maybe, but the calculations your brain will do fairly quickly without much thought if you have some simple basic math skills secured. You might find yourself asking, but why is maths important when for the 10,000th day in a row you have no need to add up all the angles in a quadrilateral? But in reality, there isn't a day that goes by when you don't use maths in some way or another. When cooking, for example, you may need to double or half a recipe or add 2/3 of the flour at the start, then the rest later. You mostly do this by eye, but it is sound mathematical understanding which enables this skill. Just look at how much maths is required for this simple brownie recipe. When out shopping, you'll use maths to work out the best bargains on offer. We may work out that the cost of 3 individual tins of beans is actually higher than the cost of a 4-pack of tins. So our maths ability may save us some money. When we need to get somewhere, we might be working out how far it is, then estimating the time it will take us to get there, and using our time-telling skills to figure out what time to leave the house to get there on time. We might even work in a diversion to the petrol station for an extra challenge. If you're doing some DIY around the house, you may need to be measuring walls, working out how many rolls of wallpaper to buy, saving more money when it's an expensive roll, and working out the total cost as you go. Every payday, you might notice if your tax is roughly right. You know how much your take-home pay is, and you know how much your bills would cost, and how much disposable income and savings you have. Maths comes really in handy when you want to take out a mortgage, open a savings account, get a credit card. How much you're going to pay back? Is it a loan or a credit card the best for your needs? How much will it cost a month, and can I afford it? Every time you use your phone, you're using maths. The circuit topography, which runs your computers and phones, the electromagnetic waves, which are usually represented as trigonometric equations, which transport data between the telecommunications devices. That means when you make a call, a text, a web search, etc. The thing is, you can't really understand how something is used unless you understand what is being used. If you're into fitness, you might want to work out how many reps of each exercise you're doing. You may want to count the calories lost and work out if you can go for a cheeky takeaway in return. Do you rely heavily on numbers on a daily basis? You might be surprised. Try going as long as you possibly can without using any numbers. That means no television, since you need numbers to choose the proper channel. You also can't put food in the microwave, since you'll need numbers to program it to cook for a certain amount of time. Think where else numbers come up. Once you start thinking about it, you'll be amazed at how interwoven numbers are into your daily lives. Thank you for listening.